Hey everyone, Cleus Glory Young here, author of The Airport Adventure and creator of the Kite Family, which are the main characters in The Airport Adventure. First and foremost, I want to say a sincere apology for those who have been waiting for the book for so long. It's been a journey, and when I mean a journey, 14 long months it took me to actually create the project. Previously, as an author, it took about 3 to 4 months. But for some reason, this project, when I talk about Murphy's Law, which is the concept of saying that whatever could go wrong will go wrong, when I talk about the trials and the tribulations that I went through with this process of publishing this book, when I talk about the concept of when it rains, it pours, I've been through it all. But at the end of the day, I could actually hold up and show you now the completion of the airport adventure. And it's quite interesting because with this book, for me, I wanted to do something different, something new. And what happened as a part of the trials and tribulations that I went through was actually hiring companies that were giving me the same old stuff that we're accustomed to as an author. So, one of the things that I really wanted to emphasize on this book, I wanted to emphasize something that when someone sees it and interacts with it, it brings a whole new perspective to their mind. And it comes from the actual context of the book, which the book is actually, and I'll stop calling it a book from now on, it's actually a bookazine. And a bookazine is the concept of how I blended a storybook with a magazine. And this is something that came to me late 2018. But the idea of putting a bookazine together was looking at the context from being a former teacher, where in the classroom we would actually get the opportunity to, the school would order books, the storybooks, and then like the magazine, and they came separately. Which for me at that time, and now that I'm looking at it, it was like apples and oranges. So you have the magazine and you have the storybook. For instance, we're dealing with science. So you could have like a science magazine and you can also have a science storybook. This is the subject matter book that the child goes through or the students go through on a day to day basis, right? So for me, now that I'm looking at it, it was almost like saying, hey, it's apples and oranges. You have the storybook that talks about science, but also you have the magazine that's on dealing with something else. So for me, with this concept now, was putting together, and I'll explain something to you right after this, was putting together a bookazine where I'm saying, here is the storybook, right? The apple, right? And then what happened now, the magazine now supplements it where it's now like apple juice. So you have the apple and the apple juice. Now you're able to quench your thirst, right? And this is something that I was saying that I was going to talk about was the idea that I never saw before. Majority of the books that we grew up on were fictional storybooks, right? And what I realized at this point now, imagine all you read, or majority of the things that you read were fictional. So, what type of mindset and what type of life do you think you would have when you become an adult? Think about it. Majority of the things that you intake growing up, right, through the literature concept was fictional. So, what type of lifestyle do you think you're going to reap as an adult? And I never made a distinction between that, that from that concept of where we grew up, and these were the things that were given to us, not knowing that if all I gave you was fiction, then you're going to grow up and you're going to have a fictional life. And that's where I started to actually see it now. Now that I was putting together the bookazine, I was like, wow, what the concept of the magazine is actually doing is now supplementing the story, which means the stuff that you read in the story, even though some of them are fictional, what you could do within the magazine section, it supplemented them by now putting them into practicality where you can apply them to your life. So it's not just a fictional story that you read about, but now you have practical tools that you can now implement in your life. So that's a big difference with what I called a bookazine versus a regular book. So a big part of it, and this is from the trials and tribulations that I went through. How do I even explain some of the things? Because I'm telling you, if I wasn't there, like, I wouldn't even believe the stories that are being told if I wasn't the person that was actually there and see it. So one particular thing was, I know I'd came in contact with a friend that came in town, and at that time I'd hired another company to finish up the bookazine. What happened, the company did a great job on the book story part, but on the magazine they didn't do a good job. So at that time my friend came in town, and he was back in town, and I'm like, wow, good, listen, I hired this company to do this. They did a good job on the front end with the storybook, but with the context of the magazine, they didn't do a good job. I know he's a graphic designer, and I know he's wonderful at what he does, right? So I'm like, hey, can I take it from the company and bring it to you, and you help me out and finish it up? No problem. We started working on it, and one day we were working on the project, and I recall that he had like an appointment to go downtown Philadelphia. So we're in Philadelphia. So he had to go downtown to Love Park to shoot a music video. So I was like, hey, let's wrap up. I'm a person, I love to be on time, or even before that, before the time actually starts, right? So I'm like, hey, let's wrap this up. We'll come back and work on the book later on. We went downtown. I watched him as he shot the music video for the client he had. And then we returned back to the house. And when we returned back to the house, the computer that we were just working on to finish up the bookazine is no longer there. Someone actually broke into the house, stole the computer, and that was one of the, should I say, Murphy's Law or trials and tribulation that I had to go through. I mean, we were right there at the end of finishing up the entire project. As I said, the other company had done a good job on the story section. They just didn't do a good job on the magazine layout. And being that I know he's a graphic designer that does a wonderful job, so I asked him as a favor to finish it up for me. And as I said, we were working on the project, and the project was almost finished. And I'm like, hey, let's go. You got to go downtown, go do what you have to do. We'll come back and finish this up. And when we came back to his house, someone had broken into the house and stole the laptop. And look how funny it is, because the laptop was actually plugged up. Remember, we were working on it. So it was plugged up, and the person took the laptop and unplugged the charger and left. And I think it was only the laptop and the sneakers that whosoever came in and stole, they stole, because those were the only two things that were missing. So right there, I had to go and start over. Remember, this was the laptop we were working on, actually my laptop. And everything that was needed to complete the project was on that laptop. So I had to go start over again. Luckily, I had emailed myself a copy to the other company. I actually asked them to send me back the copy that they had sent me with the storybook finished, but not the magazine done in the way that I wanted it. So they were able to send me back that copy, and from there, how would I put it? Because things just didn't started to make sense to me that someone would come in the house and unplug the computer and then actually just take the computer and left the charger. So when we spoke to his landlord and stuff like that, so we were gonna try to get to run the cameras and stuff. The landlord was like pinpointing that it may not be someone who broke into the house, but someone that was among our midst. So it was almost like an inside job, and it started to make sense because I'm like, why would someone break into a house, steal a laptop, unplug it, and not take the charger? And the computer was it wasn't like a cheap computer, like it was a high-tech computer, and I know you can't just find another charger like that for the computer. So if you're stealing it, you're gonna steal the charger and the computer. But someone left the computer, took the computer, and left the charger. And for me, I started to think about it if it was an inside job. But beyond that, I went on to find another company to finish up. I didn't trust that environment anymore. Long story, but also now, here's it now. Found another company, which was actually better because the company now redesigned the whole book and the magazine. Something that I've been looking for the last, I would say, about 12 months with the other companies that they weren't doing. They were just giving me the regular stuff. This company did what I actually wanted. Like when I looked at the book, the design layout, I was like, yes, I could actually put my name on this and feel very proud of it. So at that point now, we started to now wrap up. And this is what I'm saying, trials and tribulation. I could show you something. So here is the book, right? So this is actually the art cover. This is actually the paperback. The books are published, but I'll tell you this, at this point, they should not have been published. Why? Because this last company that I actually hired, at this point that I'm here making this video, the company is actually holding on to the PDF files. The PDF files are what you need to actually send to the publisher for them to publish the book. And this company is, when I mean deliberately holding on to the PDF files and will not send them to me. Within the last month of us wrapping up, I started to realize that there were changes in the way the person texts, communicate with me, and I started to address them. I said it was moving from like a client, right, to a consultant, right? So you were the one who consulted me and brought me on as a client, and I paid you to do this work. It was moving away from that, from what I was seeing in the text and the tone that the person was talking to me. It moved into where it was like a gangster context, or should I say a bully context, where this person was almost in that point where he wanted to now bully me. And I don't want to say this, but at some point I started to wonder if this person wanted the project for themselves. And as we went along, I started to address it. Hey, I saw that you did this. You weren't doing this before. What's going on? Because this is no longer like a client relationship. This is now more like you're telling me what you're going to do to the book, and I didn't pay you to tell me what to do to the book. I paid you to design a book that I needed, right? So I give you the ideas and you bring them to life. But in some aspect of what was going on, the whole relationship that we had, which was a business relationship, was more moving towards now like a gangster. Like, I'm requesting a copy of the book, a digital copy of the book to do something, and the person was like, I'm not sending it to you. I said, hey, could you just send me the copy? I needed to do something. The person copied the actual first text message and sent it back to me and said, listen, read this and listen carefully. I'm not sending you a copy of the book until I finish certain things. Which I'm like, hey, if you want to finish those things, finish them, but just send me the copy right now. I need it for something. And the person didn't. So that's something that I started to really look at, that this wasn't a client relationship anymore. If you request something from someone and you're paying them for it, they're supposed to send it to you, regardless of what state it is. So at that point, that's what I was looking at. But at the end of the day, I'm telling you, I'm doing this video right now. I have the hardcover fully published, the paperback fully published, and the person currently has the PDF file that's intentionally holding on to it because the person doesn't want me to publish the book. Filed a police report, got a lawyer involved, prayer warriors, and I won't tell you what else was involved in the process. But I'm gonna say something, because at this point, during that last 2 months, it have taught me something about the book that I never really saw. So the book is called The Airport Adventure, right? But the subtitle is called Live Safely, right? So the Airport Adventure, Live Safely. And I'm telling you, it was through this experience of going to the police station, filing a police report, getting a lawyer involved, prayer warriors. And I'll tell you, because a family member heard about what was going on, that I paid this company to do the work and they're intentionally not sending me the file, and dodging us. Like, I'm calling, I'm texting, the person is no longer responding, emailing, the person is no longer responding, and the family member was going to take measures in his own hand. And for me, at one point, when the person called and asked for the number, I had to say, listen, don't worry about it. I found a way to get around the company. And that's how I got the books published. But it taught me about what is called Live Safely. Because at that point, and originally when I was having the conversation with the family member, like, I told them what the person is doing. And it's like, this wasn't the context of you just paid a company and they're not giving you the material. As I said before, it was like this person was using a gangster role to overcome me. Like, I'm not giving you your book even though you paid me full. Like, this person have no rights or anything to say, hey, I'm holding on to your book. Like, I paid you whatever you wanted. Not only that, at one point, because of the context of how the book was designed, I was like, wow, I was so happy. I'm like, I'm going to give you a large tip. And even at that point, the person is like, oh, I don't need a tip. I just need my payment, made the payment and everything, but the person still holds on. Up to this day, the person is still holding on to the files. And for me, that family member wanted to go find him. And it taught me about live safely. Because at the end of the day, I'm telling you this, you sit down and you plan, right, to do something shady or something dirty to someone, right? But you don't know what extent that person will go through to get what they need from you, right? or you don't know who that person have in their family member or who they have as friends that will actually come and get that results that's needed. All right. So for me, this was something that it really taught me about what it really means to live safely with others. You may sit there and you decide to do someone shady or do someone dirty, but you don't know what the person will go through to make sure that whatever you did to them, and I don't want to say revenge, but that may be the thing that the person look at. For me at that point, like, I really didn't care because I took all the measures that were necessary. Went to the police, right? Got a lawyer involved. Even the lawyer, when the lawyer sent the person an email in regards to, hey, this is what's gonna happen. We need the files. All right. Send the files or we're gonna go to court and do this. The person sent back and said, oh, he's gonna get a lawyer involved. And I'm looking at it now like, what lawyer would really take a case like that for you? Because he started to respond to the lawyer, but he wouldn't respond to me. What lawyer would actually take a case like that? You're fully paid, right? You have no reason that you should be holding on to the files. And you deliberately know that in the email that the lawyer sent you, it says, hey, send these files, right? There's supposed to be 4 files. He only sent 2. And that's how I know he's deliberately not sending the file. And the 2 files that he sent is what is called source files. Source file is what you use to make the PDF. He has the capability of making the PDF and sending it to me, right? But he chose not. He sent me the source file. Unless you're a graphic designer, right? You don't really have what is called Adobe Premiere or something like that. One of the software that is used to design books and magazine and stuff like that. The regular person, even a regular author or stuff, they don't have those type of software available. Why? Because it costs a lot, right? So no one just gets up and go buy these software. So actually, when he sent me the source file, I wasn't even able to open it up because I don't have the software on my computer, which was a new computer that I had to get. So a part of that now was actually looking at it from the context of whatever means was necessary to obtain the files, then that's the means that we're going to be taking. I did the regular police report and got the lawyers. I even had people praying about it. Like, what else could you do? So at one point, the revelation came to me, and I saw in the context of, so the book is called The Airport Adventure. Something that I now practice is called aviate. Aviate means to go above and beyond. So I had to aviate my thinking and go above and beyond this person. And that's how I was able to actually got the book published. As I said, physical proof. They're here. They're here, published. And now I'm able to offer them to the world. This was a significant project for me. It wasn't about just doing another book. Anyone can do books, right? As I said, a part of it is doing what is called a bookazine, which is something new. I've never seen another author done something like this. But also, it's called The Airport Adventure. And one of the things that I've been doing for the last 2.5 years, I've been studying and understanding the airport at a more in-depth level. And for me, when I started to understand certain principles that are put in place to actually help the airport run successfully, I was like, wow, if we can put these things in our own life or in our own families or in our own communities, then it allows us to run successful just as the airport, or even better. So that was one of the contexts. And as I said, it was trials and tribulations Murphy's Law. Oh my goodness, Murphy's Law. If you look in the dictionary and it says Murphy's Law, you probably see a picture of me right there. And then the context of what it says, when it rains, it pours. And I'm telling you, it was pouring. I mean, just look at it. Up to this day, like, it's over a month and a half now, and the person is still holding on to the files. Like, who does that? But this is something that I had to endure. And I endured everything that, not only just that person, one of the companies before that, which I strategically found a way how to actually get a copy of one of the books, The Airport Adventure. You may have remembered that last year around September, October, I was working with a company to release the book, and the book was released, but I wasn't pleased. Like, it looks good, but it was like, no, that's a book. I'm trying to do a bookazine. And I'd encountered some some challenges with that company, but they were in the process of resolving it, which the owner of the company actually took on the project, and we were working together to finish up, and it just went sour because they promised me to do this, and then when I looked at it, they didn't do it. So it went sour from there. What I was asking for was also to make certain changes in the book. And I remember the email specifically. It told me that I was picky, right? Too picky. Number two, the email said that they're not making any changes, right? And the third thing that really caused me to walk away from that company, they told me that I don't know anything about publishing. So those three things: I don't know anything about publishing, I'm too picky, and they're not going to make the change that I was requesting. So I found a strategic way to actually get the book published, because what I wanted to do was to show comparison, right? So here's it that I'm too picky, I don't know anything about publishing, right? And they're not making the changes. So if you could see, this is actually a different title. So when I walked away from that company and the other people that I was sharing, I had an encounter with these people. But for me, the vision was to create something different. And this book right here, I could even put both the book together, both paperback. And just look at the size. This is the one that they did, and look at the size of this that I went out and did for myself. But here's it that I don't know anything about publishing, right? And I'm too picky. No. I wake up every morning now, and I'm very thankful for this. There's nothing else in my life that how would I put it? Like, I really desire that I should accomplish anymore. Like, once I completed this was it. Like, I felt like my life dream was completed. Like, what is it that you're put on earth to do? And when I completed this publication, that's what it felt like for me. This, if you look at the interior of it, it was done wonderful. Like, I'm not saying that they didn't do a good job, but it's like you go to a car dealership, you're going to buy a car, right? And there's 50 cars that you have to choose from, right? But there's this one car that you look at and it's like, yay, that's it. So the other cars could be like a Bentley, and a Bentley is real nice, right? But you see like a Benz or a BMW or a Toyota, and even though the Bentley is there and it looks good, it's like, oh no, I want this. This is what fits me. So for me, this is what fits me. Like, when I tell you the design in it, and there's a memorabilia inside of the book that I specifically asked the other company, the one that's still actually holding on to the files. I asked them for this. Because what happened, they did exactly what I was asking the other company to do, the same company that told me that I don't know anything about publishing. This new company actually did it, so I had them do something into the book that create what is called a memorabilia. Because here's it that one company is telling me that I don't know what I'm doing, and then here's it that this other company, they automatically did it. And for me, I'm like, it makes sense. That's how it's supposed to be done. Like, so when they did it and they sent it to me, I have them change. So you could see that there's a part of the storybook that actually have two different color pages from the rest of the book. And I specifically had them do that. And that was based on what I was told about this one. So at the end of the day, the book is now available. I don't know what else to really say in regards to this. I've been through the Murphy's Law several times. I've been through the trials and tribulations, all right? And I've also been through the process of what it calls when it rains, it pours, right? So all these things I had to encounter for me to actually be here today. And I'm telling you, when I say satisfied, I don't know what else to explain. Like, what word would really articulate the way I feel right now about this project being completed. And then here's what I said. I studied and understand the airport from a different level. One of the things that actually helps the airport to operate on a daily basis and successfully do this, where they're able to take their customers from one location to a new destination on the airplane, is actually based on the principle of safety. So this is why the book is called Live Safely. And when you talk about safety, it is something that once you insert it in your life, it changes the dynamic. So the book context, the bookazine context is based on safety, well-being, and new possibilities. All right? Safety, well-being, and new possibilities. And I could tell you this. Once safety is inserted in your life from a whole different angle, I'm not talking about the safety that they talk about, public safety, or there's a different level of safety that I started to understand. All right. Once that is inserted in your life, then it impacts or influence your well-being. All right. Once your well-being is intact, all right, then you begin to see new possibilities. So I didn't just study and understood or understand the airport from a whole different angle, right? I encountered it myself where I'm like, wow, at some point of my life, I started to insert safety in my life, and it brought my level of thinking to a whole nother level. Your level of thinking increases, then your well-being increases as well, right? There's the book, one of the books that I've read, and many people have read it, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, right? Think and grow rich. So he based his whole principle on the book about the level of where you think is how you determine how rich you're going to be in life. It's not based on the color of your skin or where you're from, it's the level of thinking. So of course, in this, we talk about what is called aviation thinking, which is the concept of aviation is about aviating your mind to a whole nother level that you can see new possibilities. And I'm telling you, live safely. That was what I encountered with this person that's currently holding on to the files and preventing, at least he thinks that the book is not published. But little did he know that I had to be in a position where I practice what I wrote, aviate your thinking. And now I was able to get the book published. So in the back of his mind right now, he's holding on to the files and the book is not published. But you can see that they're here, right? And I have some people who have gotten their copies already, so they saw the reality. But at the end of the day, I know that your safety, your well-being, and new possibilities are all a part of your life. And it's funny because now we're in a pandemic mode and we talk about this new norm. New norm, bookazine, right? Walk away from the old book, and now I'm doing something as what is called a bookazine. So that's my spill of what happened during the last 14, 15 months that it took me to bring this to life. It's a lot. When I tell you, there's a lot that I've put into it, and also I've made a lot of changes from the first book because I started to understand certain level now. So I had to make adjustments in it. But it's here and it's available. To me, this is my gift to the earth. Not to people, to the earth. People will utilize it, but this is my way of saying, listen, I came here. This is how I saw the earth. What is it that I could actually do to make the earth a better place than where I came and saw it? And this is what I found. I've done other books, I've done other things, and none of them is more pleasing and satisfying as the airport adventure. My mission that I have now that the book is complete is to actually bring the airport to the community. The airport has been this secluded place that many people, even in the community, has never been on a plane or even been in an airport. But at the end of the day, it's like the airport have all these principles that could be inserted in your life, and just like a plane, you would be able to take off and go to a new destination, whether you want to be a lawyer, doctor, teacher, you name it, it's a new destination. And if you're able to translate these principles that runs the airport and translate them in your life into layman's terms, then what happens? Your life now gets to take off. And I don't know if anyone has ever brought this to your attention, but your body, right, your physical body and the element of an airplane is the same dynamic when it comes to what principles are needed to take them off from on the ground to a whole new destination. Same principles. I was like, wow, no one ever taught us this. Funny enough, so let me show you something real quick. So on the airplane, there's a section called the cargo, right? This is where you put the suitcases and freight inside, right? So that part, which is called the cargo, is also called the belly of the plane. Ironically, we have something that is called the stomach, right? Also called our belly, right? In psychology, they taught us about what is called freeze mode, right? Freeze mode or fight mode, right? And what's the last one? Flight. Flight mode. Freeze, flight, and fight. Flight, right? So you take flight when something appears to you that's challenging and you don't feel what? Safe. I'm telling you, I did the research and I did whatever it was, right, that was needed to understand how can I make you have your best life possible. And that's what the airport adventure is about. Live safely. When you live safely, on all dynamics of your life starts to aviate. It brings your life to a whole nother level. That's where I'm at. And I know this personally. So this is the context of what I had to endure for the last 14 to 15 months just to make this possible. But at the end of the day, whatever tribulations came, right, whatever trials, right, whatever Murphy's Law appeared, right, whatever rainy circumstance that appeared, I could tell you that I endured them. And this is why we have a book here today, the Bookazine. I'm so used to calling it a book. The Bookazine here today, the Airport Adventure, Live Safely. So I want to thank you all for enduring this message. But at the end of the day, I felt like I needed to really come on and share my experience of what happened within the last 14 to 15 months that I journeyed on to complete this project. And I could tell you this, I've discovered so many things that I used to believe in, and I no longer believe in it, just through this process. So what I created was a part of it. One of them is called the Jade Formula. Jade, Jade. So on a journey, which is the J, right? If you make it into an adventure, right? Ups and downs, left and right, an adventure, right? When you take that journey and it becomes an adventure, the airport adventure, right? Then what happened now, you go into what is called this mode of life. That is the D, discover. You will discover things, right? And out of that discovery now, you have a moment that you can now go to the E, which is establish. So if you take those discoveries and you put them into practicality in your life, then it helps you to establish a whole new life. So I created what is called the Jade Formula. Through a journey, right, that becomes adventurous, you must discover something out of that adventure. I know, yeah, things go left, right, ups, down. It's an adventure. But at the end of the day, you have to discover something out of that. You can't go through your ups and downs, left and right, your trials, your tribulation, your rainy days, your Murphy's Law, and never discover anything. Even one of the things that I said, I discovered in the book, even though I wrote it, right? It's called Live Safely. What does it mean to really live safely with people? Meaning that I'm not sitting down here and I'm having some type of trick up my sleeves that I'm going to insert on you to make your life unsafe. And if anyone doesn't know anything about psychology, they tell us about the concept of survival mode, which is unsafe mode. When you put someone in an unsafe mode, right? Which that company had put me in. You don't know what the person will do. To what extent will that person do? And I'm telling you, I wrote the book. It's about live safely. I want people to live safely with each other. But for me, I never really understood what live safely was all about until I encountered that adventure with that company. And I was able to discover now it means to live safely with each other. Don't sit down and try to plan something or be jealous or envious or covetous over someone's life. No, like treat them accordingly. There's a lot of things in here that I also discovered and insert in this book, which is not in this book. So I inserted them. And one of the things was also, how do we treat each other? Because at the end of the day, I'm telling you, you may sit down and do something, right, that you may not even think that the person is going to respond to in a negative way, but because it's unsafe, you put the person in what is called a survival mode. And I'll tell you this, The brain doesn't know any family, any friends, any relationship, right? Any partnership, right? When you put it into a survival mode. This is why people can just get up and kill their family members, or kill their friends, or kill their partners, or kill their people that they're in a relationship with, because the brain goes into what is called a survival mode. So there's two concepts of your life. You can be in a survival mode, or you can be in a living mode. Live safely, so we can come out of that survival mode. And when you look at it, I've done the in-depth research to understand that all this killing that's going on in the community, police brutality, rape, you name it, it all comes down to someone being in a survival mode. And for us African American or colored people, or whatever you want to call it, minorities, right? That's the mode they have put us in for the last 400 years. They put us into what is called a survival mode. So when I look at the community right now, and I'm an avid member in the community, right? So when I look at the community right now, there's nothing that you can show me in the community that doesn't relate around safety. Meaning that you took someone's safety away, right, purposely, and you insert what is called fear. Fear now puts us into what is called a survival mode, and when someone is in a survival mode, now they actually go into what is called a warranty. They warranty to do this, right? Kill someone, rape someone, brutalize someone, jealous of someone. It's a long story, but the context of where my life is to produce something that I could contribute to the earth, to make the earth safe, right? In that context now, right, it's the environment, right? So the earth is the environment, and then now you have the people who are dwelling in the environment. So when you make your environment safe, then what happens now, the people who are in that environment now become safe. It's the principle of the airport. They make the airport environment safe, right? And then those who come to the airport to take their flights will now be safe. I mean, every now and then you have a little unsafe circumstance, but at the end of the day, one of the stats that I saw was that they were able to get 4.3 billion, billion, with a B, not million, right? 4.3 billion people safely to their destination, and it's because they create the environment for it to happen, right? So, all right, so thank you all for listening to this, but for me, I felt like I needed to come on and share what has been going on for the last 14 to 15 months through my trials, my tribulations, my Murphy's Law, my rainy days, whatever you want to call it, my storms. I was able to complete what I set out to complete, a bookazine, and offer something totally innovative and totally new to the community. And this was something way before we had to go into what is called that moment now, a new norm, a new norm. So again, thank you. And for me, I could say, be safe, stay healthy, and build new possibility. God bless.